Nawach Papama, the son of Shiria Denga, had two sons, which is Dimbanyiga, the one who refused, and Lewanyiga, the one who accepted. So Dimbanyiga, in those times around 1400, I mean, at the bottom, start at the top so that we can say, okay, we are coming from that area, Great Zimbabwe, Mutapa. The king then is the one, she didn't run away. It was a peaceful thing to say, if you remain here, your brothers would kill you. I give you blessing as a father, move that side. Yes. So she came this side knowing with blessings, but directed as well, like they would say. Masala Navo was not raised there. She, in Facebook, Twitter, and everyone can say Masala Navo must become king because we are a group of people that are controlled by the likes and the vivas, everything. And we're doing this, pushing away our own tradition and customs. Because that family says, like you said, we have no problem. We have never had a problem with the king or queen because like we. So it's a Kaziam in Ndumi. So Tony was Ndumi at Dimania because Ndumi is that which was born with you so that he can protect you. He's your prime minister kind of a thing. Yes. This is what you in the modern time. Ndumi is the prime minister, yet the king, which was Dibanyik, and with the Kaz. So this is the three people that we came together into this new reign. And that's so that Japan said. There's a process also that is called when you die as a king. There's a process that they say they do on the mountain. Like I said, they bury in the mountain. Uzindi is kind of a thing. And I think it's to do with male parts and other things, but I'm understand to be corrected.
Mashani politically incorrect. Ritsweri, a social commentator on matters that have to do with linguistics, tribal interests, and also a historical background of our people. So I'm going to let him introduce himself so we talk. But among the things that I want to achieve, I wish I achieved by this, is to understand the long-standing matter that we've always discussed. That is, who are the VhaVenda people? Who are they? And of course, when we do that, because it might give us the background of Munhumutapa, we'll also understand BaLobedu, but everyone. So it's going to be a mixed bag, and I wish I could sit down and listen, but as we usually have to drive it. Tobe
la mashani nakale video ke Mugwena ke tswa mashamba be wa ka mashamba next to Louis Trichat.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's correct to rather call oneself as a social commentator, political commentator, traditional customary commentator. Yes. It's safer to say like that. Yes. You're commentating, as an expert in that space.
Yes.
But in a nutshell, Mugwena, and I go by the name Mujifem. That's Mugwena family. That's how I represent myself. Go YouTube, Lego, TikTok as Mujifem.
Okay.
Go Facebook, I call myself like you password Wamsegedi. Those are my ancestry line.
Okay.
Yes.
You comment about a lot of things, and they're of interest to me and some of our viewers. So I just want to do this. Hona le Vhangona, hona le Masingo, others came early. Where can we start saying Venda or Batsweta? But humile so, what I saw, until we speak about today, because you would know that whether correctly or incorrectly, you will assist us. 3 groupings. Vhangona, VhaLemba, and then Leba Singo. So I just want you to do this. And then before you do, let me give another disclaimer. It is not disrespect of VhaVenda. We have tried many times, and we've spoken to a lot of VhaVenda people to assist us with the royal people who could speak to us, and we reached out in vain, of course. And we also tried to historians we're hitting a brick wall. I hope you understand that we are not going to stop because we don't get them. So we are going to talk about this. So if we get anything wrong, it's for them to come and correct us. These three groupings, Venda, and people from outside may not even know Venda in those three groupings, and there's no peace if in these three. Please take us wherever you come from.
I think it's very important, Mashiano, before we even get to the point, because I always say, based on history, VhaVenda or VhaPedi is an amalgamation of groups, different tribes that live, VhaPedi, make VhaVenda, Botswana, and so on. So even the same as VhaVenda, like you've said correctly, Vasenzi, Vhangona, and Botswana, Mbetu, Mbire, different groups forced and later on conquered by what we'll then discuss now, made the so-called VhaVenda today. But let's not start there. Let's rather go a step backward where we talk about the kingdom Yamapunguti, because everything has to start there. Because VhaVenda, we're referring to a group that somehow had interlinked or they are linked with Kalanga people. That we cannot run away from that, whether roots. So let's rather start from a kingdom Yamapunguti, where the king, historians, different historians, including the VhaVenda historians, which you've just said, Corilla, some of them maybe they might not agree what we're saying, we'll talk to Rakadar and so on. But they've got that right to come and say, okay, that part was wrong. We've also listened to them, have analyzed what they've said, we realize there's a gap in between. So Mapungubwe was led by a king between the 11th and the 13th century, Bariki Hoshi or the king Shiria Dek. That's a Kalanga origin. That's not Shona, that's not Venda, that's Kalanga. Shiri meaning a bait. Denga, even now it's a Venda word now is using Venda in Shona and in Kalanga. That, I mean, in Kalanga, that means Odenga, that's the keenness of the sky. So Shiria Denga or Lehodimo. So in other words, Shiria Denga was that person that was talking to God directly. So he had political, we can say politically and spiritual powers to rule over the tribe that was there by then in Mapungubwe. This Shiria Denga, that's a Kalanga or a key that led at that time between the 11th and the 13th century. Obviously, the way of Vhangona in that area, this is what we need to also articulate, that this is Vhangona people that we're going to speak about later on. They were part and parcel of that. Those are the Rapulus, the Napawas, the Nepawes, and many other people. They were part and parcel of that group that the Shiria Denga was leading during those times of Mapungubwe Great Kingdom. So that we don't lose ourselves. So when we move from the Mapungubwe Kingdom, and as Venda, there's this thing that even today we're going to talk about what we talked later about Woseba Masindi and Editorium people. So the kingdom of Mapungubwe, the kingdom collapsed eventually, like any other kingdom. But before it collapsed, the king Shiria Denga died. This is what different historians says. When he died, he had to be buried where he was buried. The so-called the Kalanga people and the Vhangona people had to go to his grave because they were used to him talking to God directly for them. They go to his grave, they speak to him on the grave so that he can pass the message to. That's where Tavajam pass or Pasa somehow came from. And then when that whole thing happened now, clearly then the power of that kingdom is deteriorating. In other words, one of his sons had to leave this Mapungu area to what now became the Great Zimbabwe. One, the Rapurus and the Nepawes and others left there. That's why one of the king the Rapurus, which is Chisweri, that's what also some part of his translated somehow not well documented, says when Shiria Denga died, the next king, the second king, somehow they say King Chisweri, who's later on, that's the king of the Rapurus and the Nepawes. But then we're going to come to that later on. Let's go to this great Zimbabwe story. The son of Shiria Denga Chipapa, or Chipapa, I mean, Venda, some say Chipapa, I mean Chipapa, because Venda currently is very much interlinked with Kalanga. He had moved towards what we call now Zimbabwe, which was Great Zimbabwe. And also it's very important to give this context that Zimbabwe, as it is a Kalanga word. It's a Kalanga word. It comes from Zimba, Zamabwe.
Oh.
Zimba, Zamabwe, Zimba meaning houses of stones. So it's very important to say, why did it become Zimbabwe? Zimbabwe is a Kalanga, Rosi, Ukhalaka, because that's very important as well to say, Ukhalaka, Kalanga, all are the same words. They became Zimba, Zamabwe. That's where they built That was King Chipapamba, the son of Shiriadela, who ruled Mapungubwe. So from Mapungubwe, you get to the kingdom of the biggest kingdom became the kingdom of Zimbabwe via the son of Shiriadela, which is Chipapamba or Chipapa. He led the histories, some of the different literature says between 13th centuries to about 1450, 1475. That's where he was leading there. Where the confusion comes, where it's where they saying Dimbanyiga, which we'll talk about later on, came from that kind of lineage. And we'll define or talk about that myth and how does it connect to the Basenzi people. Later on in that space of the great Zimbabwe and Chipapama and the whole leadership of Chipapama, that's where he had two sons as well. The fight that ensued there between themselves, that's where you hear the term Dimbanyika in the Venda culture later on, and Liwanyika in the Kalanga Rosuti. So Liwanyika was the younger brother of Dimbanyika. According to these histories, they might not all agree, but they agree on one thing. There was Liwanyika and Dimbanyika. Dimbanyika was the one that realized after Chipapama had died that they wanted to take over the throne. And there was already a fight between himself and other kings, other chiefs, together with his younger brother. He decided, I don't want to become a king in this place. I'd rather take my people, Awela to Lipombo Liver 2, one now today is called Njelele, South Africa, but at the time it was called Rwanda in the Veda name, Rwanda. That's how we moved from Great Zimbabwe into Rwanda. But then again, I don't want us to talk about this thing that I've already said. Let's go now to this area, Munhumutapa, so that all of them can then talk sense when now we get into South Africa and for the South African interest there. Once that had happened, while this guy, the king, moved to Rwanda, which is Dimbanyika, leaving his younger brother, Liwanyika, there's no history anywhere where it says what was their names. We don't know what's their original names. Nobody, even these guys that are, right? So the name Dimbanyika came because Dimba, it's a Kalanga again. With his whole story, Kalanga would always remain. Dimba meaning rejecting. Udimba or Dimba was or Hana was. So Dimbanyika, Nyika is an inheritance. So Dimba, Nyika, Senator, he refused. That's why he's called Dimbanyika, and the term was used up to today. And the Liwanyika or Rambanyika, Ramba in Venda, even currently, is to refuse. Liwa in Swahili, and the Chichewa and so on, refused as well. They're all not related, these people. Then Liwanyika was the one who said, I accepted, he took Bohoshi, and then he continued with that. We leave that space now. This guy has moved now to Rwanda, and Liwanyika is left at that side. When that kingdom of Great Zimbabwe as well collapses as well, that's when now they moving, one of his sons as well, moving to the area that now today they call what, sorry, even today it was that's the history of Monomotapa, which was the Portuguese name. Munhumutapa was in the correct way of Kalanga, that's Mwenemutapa. Mwene is not different from Venda. I think currently where it says Ne, Kana Ne, the owner. Mwenemutapa, the owner of Mutapa kingdom. That's this. So from that Liwanyika, his descendants are the one that later on, after when that kingdom collapses, went to a place called now Munhumutapa, Mwenemutapa, where then he was ruling between the 1400 centuries, about 1600, when now we can talk about the Venda and the Tsonga and other people later on. But between the 1480 and 1600, that's when this Limbanyika's descendants were ruling Munhumutapa or Mwenemutapa kingdom. That whole history, it just helps us understand where the Kalanga people were, and today the descendants of the Kalanga people, who are they? Because all of us, like I said, the most important is to understand that from Syria Denga, from Mapungubwe up to today, they are the descendant of Kalaka. It's very important. They are all coming under this kingship here, the first kingship of Mapungubwe, Syria Denga.
It's hard more. Thank you very much for picking. Yes. So I have always had a confusion. And then I want you to correct me. The Munhumutapa Empire, very big, Southern Africa, what we now call SADC.
Yes.
And we have Mapungubwe, we've got Great Zimbabwe, And you know, the colonizers call it the Zimbabwe ruins. It breaks my heart whenever they do that. And we had, and of interest is the military engineering behind the prowess of these people. I mean, the Mapungubes were great with gold, and I know there's a place called Masurini. Have you heard Masurini next to Palaboro? Yes, those people were smelters, ironsmith as early as 1200s. By the way, Bartholomew Dias came to our coast around 1488, these Portuguese. So you could understand that even on the east side of the continent, we already had Chinese and people coming through. So they came because we had something to offer.
Yes.
The whole thing is so made in stuff, and to an extent, people say they don't even believe that Africans were the first to have metals, to do iron ore and stuff. So I want you to break it down in periods, if you can, in periods. So Munhumutapa was this great empire, and within Munhumutapa there were these trading posts, and Zimbabwe, the great Zimbabwe. Explain it to me so from the helicopter view, so I can understand, because I want to walk out of this understanding things. And because Batsongas on the eastern coast of South Africa were already bringing the Portuguese. Or I don't know to what age, and the Oriental people were already trading. So because what I'm trying to establish is, before Mahua Africa, we had a civilization.
True.
The empire of Munhumutapa was that. So, and we had all of these things. That's what I want to paint. But please give it to us in years.
So I think it's also, Mashiane, it's very important to say, like you say, it's very incorrect to say African people were not civilized. That's very incorrect.
Yes, and this is why I wanted to demystify today.
Yeah. That's very incorrect, because beside, even before we get to that Monomotapa, which was great, but the king of Mapungubwe itself was already great. That's why mining. That's why even today, with the current times now,
Gold mine.
You go there, mining and everything, and all the sculptures which are of mine and so on are still there. So it's impossible to say how were they melting them? How do they get to dig them out of the ground? So already the king Shiria Denga was the man who, and his people, different people, running that space. That's why the Shona next to now the current map of Mapungubwe. Shona is the different area now where we can talk about Botswana and so on. Meaning these people, Mapungubwe, they were not just, because they're of Karanga origin, doesn't mean that everyone became Venda, everyone became Rosie, everybody became Shona. They moved towards Botswana. Some moved all these different directions. That's very important for us to understand. That's why then it becomes easier later on to say, when we talk of Munhumutapa kingdom, which is a kingdom, like I said, between 1400 and 1600. As much as we can say it's the biggest, but biggest compared to what? Biggest because now there are more people. In terms of people, population, because we cannot say in terms of gold and other things. No, that was just now in terms of people who were now part and parcel of that. And also, Mashiane, to add to that, it was becoming bigger because already people coming from Ethiopia, Congo, like you were saying, and we already have decided that, because already they knew they're going south, because south there's gold, there's this and this. So that's very important. But the time frame, the time was between, like I said, 1480 late 1600. That's the time that Munhumutapa kingdom was in power. But again, you must, in the history, they say the Portuguese people, when they came to attack, that's why they gave it Mono, not our name, which is Mwenemutapa, attacked it because they came, because they knew they were coming to get something from it. They conquered it for that reason. And they go on and say, we didn't write. That's why there's a lot of historians that wrote from Portugal and then Germany and everywhere. There was nothing written even about the Zimbabwean roots. That's what they say, and that's written out there. We didn't write a lot, or even if we did, maybe we wrote on the rocks. But this myth of saying there was no history is impossible. This myth of saying that we're not civilized is impossible. How do you build great Zimbabwe, which is today called Zimbabwe, and the Zimbabwe, the ruins, with no cement, with no any clue, because those are not so different from the Egyptians' pyramids. So you needed to have an architectural thinking or background to do that. Meaning we were very aware of the surrounding in terms of the digging, the mining. We were very good at that. We were aware of the environment. We were aware of every single thing. That's why we never collapsed. Rain was still there. All other things were there. The important thing to understand with this Munhumutapa kingdom is that already that time we were already being infiltrated by different tribes and nations, because Portuguese is a nation, but there were already other tribes that came in that Munhumutapa kingdom. Some already came earlier on in the Great Zimbabwe kingdom. That's why also it collapsed. Kingdoms collapse because they already been infiltrated by other people.
Okay. When we say VhaVenda, what's over halaka, like everyone. And when I say VhaPedi, it's also, it's so difficult to actually pin everything, because everything, and this is why people don't understand, people from Limpopo, when we say VhaPedi kaofela.
VhaVenda wrote,
yeah, yes. So Vuhalaka, Kalanga, Kikai.
Vuhalaka, this is area ya Mapungu ya Zimbabwe. That's the Vuhalaka. But now also including, so actually in the nowadays we can say SADC.
That's exactly what I
was. So let's put it so that it can be frank.
Yes.
The current SADC, and it's very important to understand that, like I say, I will keep saying, Shiria Denga didn't rule Mapunguje only. The same historians, Sabu, Dr. Rakata and others from Univen, they will tell you when this kingdom was getting bigger and bigger, some, like I said, from the Shona side move side ya Botswana, the current Botswana now, some Mozambique, Malawi, Zambia. That whole area, which today we call SADC, was still all of them paying homage to one king, which is Shiria Denga, with their own chieftainships.
Yes.
Different chiefs, but the king was still Shiria Denga. Yeah. So SADC is Tubuhalaka, ha Shiria Denga. You want to put it there.
Yeah, no. Let me leave it to this. It's so confusing because, and I don't want to speak much. So let's start. Who were the first VhaVenda?
Okay. So it becomes very important. Kind of we've already now laid the foundation in terms of people who can get confused. Later on, they will understand VhaVenda from this kingdom, Yamapungu, and the kingdom, Great Zimbabwe. And later on, they will understand some of still the Venda people that came later on as well, which Banyai and so on, and the Rosi people, Matebula related, all Kalanga people from the Monomotapa kingdom, so that it can be understood in that context. But now, like earlier on, I said, when I spoke intentionally about this Great Zimbabwe thing, that Mwanawach Babama, the son of Shiria Denga, had two sons, which is Dimbanyika, the one who refused, and Lewanyika, the one who accepted. So Dimbanyika, in those times around 1400, when there was not fight yet, like to cross over the Pombo River to Rwandali in Jelele, current Jelele, in Venda. Moving to this side, this is the guy then now that had to start conquering, fighting. Remember when Chipapamba, son of Shiria Denga, moved to the Great Zimbabwe? It's not like the land was vacant. Mapungu was still in existence. That's why there was this second king called Shizweli of the Rapurus and so on. So they were people already still, and they moved some of them from that Mapungu now towards north of the, now we call the Pombo province, in these spaces, including Rwanda, Injelele, and so on. Maybe up to Panavra, who knows? Maybe up to BaLobedu, Archie, we don't know, but we just say they started moving across this Lepombo area. When Dimanya came, he didn't come in a space like the white people where it was empty. He found people which are called Vhangona, the original people that were the one which were led by this King Shiria Denga. They were still people that were remaining, Vhangona, VhaLemba, and so those are the people that were part and parcel of the kingdom, and they are now dispersed in different areas. When he comes, he conquered them. He had to conquer them. I like the way the late Kosi Japan, he just passed, I think, 4 weeks ago. He said in one of his the interview when they were talking about Twena Abuboshi, he said, was it as a papa where you can just be given? Back then, you had to fight for it. So when people now in front of this, they will tell you, no, she was where it is, this, that, they are because they are from the lineage of the Dimbanyika who conquered these people. But then let's park it there where we say Dimbanyika came to Rwanda. But then who's this Dimbanyika now in line in relation with Masenzi now? So that you can make proper context in terms of who the real VhaVenda or the first VhaVenda people. So that part here, who's the real VhaVenda people, is answered by many historians, including Dr. Rakadar and many other historians there. They saying VhaVenda was never a used word back then. The word was Vhangona. That all of them, historians, they agree that Vhangona was the word because it meant, there's another word, I think it's a Kalanga word as well, that says, Mwene. The people that were there before everything happened. Mwene. Those are the people that were there before everything happened. But again, when you listen to Jisike, Wanwapo, you hear it's a Kalanga. It's a Kalanga thing. So these Kalanga people confirm my story that they were coming from Mapunguge and everybody just dispersed. But these Vhangona people, and part and parcel, they are Kalangas. These Vhangona people. They are the first people that we can say the original VhaVenda people, if we were to use the term original.
I want you to hold it there. And the reason I pause you is so we don't get lost.
Yeah.
And if you have the yes assistants, Dimbanyika, when he crosses the Limpopo River into our plains, this side, do you know around which years?
They said, let's say, in rounding of 1500.
1500, sharp.
Because VhaVenda, they only is extended after 1700.
Okay.
So that, the VhaVenda, so we must understand, for 200 years,
yes,
there was just this group that are combining later on the made VhaVenda. So 1500 to round it off.
Dimbanyika came.
That's what I want us to get into that part. How did he become Musenzi? Because Senzi, they are not Kalangas. How did it become? Because even Dimbanyika is not a Senzi word, it's a Kalanga word. How did it happen that this Senzi king now become...
Okay. And then he finds... What people did he find there?
He find Vhangona.
Vhangona are the people who at Mapungube have mined those gold sculptures. Okay. He finds them. Does he integrate or he conquers?
Integrate and conquers. Because he had to intermarriages and so on. That's how you win. A woman, you win.
That's no human rights at the time.
No.
Yes. Yeah. So nature took its course. Those people become one for around 200 years. Yes. Until to the 17th.
But let it be in the context that it's not like one as if they were no. Bakwevos that the Bakwevos are the whatever this as they will depict it. Yeah. That's a tribe on its own, a huge big tribe that they were also part and parcel of this group Vhangona. So that had to be, there's a war that had to happen between these Dimbanyika people and the Bakwevos to conquer them. We'll talk about their fight relating to Ngomarungundu and all that in the power that was used by this Masenzi to conquer them.
1700, then the identity of VhaVenda comes in. What brings it about? What distinct features does it say now? VhaVenda.
So again, Mashiach, before we say is now, we go to the area. Now they are VhaVendas. Now let's rework from this so that we can link this passage to this Dimbanyika person. Okay. So this as well, this they can go check, the viewers, they can go check themselves under the history of VhaVenda where Japan spoke about it and many other people. So Japan himself, which there was the thinking now, he spoke, there's a video that people can look at on YouTube. He spoke about Basenzi, which they were together with the Balauzis and VhaLemba and Bandaramu when they left Congo. He says Matongoni. Matongoni in the Zulu thing is a Matongo, like where Matongo. So he says Matongoni of VhaVenda, this the Basenzi people, it's in Congo. He says there was a king there called, I think the cause was Chirume. Chirume was their king, these Basenzi people in Congo. So apparently there's a story where one day he woke up together with his assistant, which is a Muremba person. A Muremba person, where that was his assistant. They went out for normal day hunting and stuff. When he came back, the household was burning. As he was approaching, this story is not my story, it's there, it's recorded. Then when he approaches, these people says he was told, Chirume was told not to approach, let Muremba approaches. So Muremba approaches the area, he was told, take what is called moropa, ngomarundu, ngurungundu. Take this, don't put it on the floor. This is the thing that you and the king and the people now, mufuru ngajivenda baro mufuru ukurua. You people must move from this area of Congo now. It wasn't Congo by the time, but yeah, now it's Congo. Move south. This is now you are directed to move south. With this thing, you're going to conquer. And you will see me, they say, Nwari, Nwari. You will see as I move, I will direct you as we move. Then BaLobedu, the Mushabis people, then they were the one holding this Ngomarununu, which will help these VhaVenda people or the Basenzi people to fight along the way, because there's no flight. You are moving. You're gonna meet different tribes in the way. You must be fighting until you get where you're going. So they move from that Congo space together with Kosi Chirume until they go to the grade. That's why I said my background was important to lay down so that it could be understood in the context of VhaVenda. Then when they arrived at what was called the Great Zimbabwe at the time, they said in one of the villages, remember there's already a king, Chipamama and so on. So when they get to that space, they say themselves around 1400. So it means they arrived at the very same time where there was the kingdom of the Great Zimbabwe was at the peak, but gonna go down. They are already being integrated, also infiltration from other groups. So these Basenzi people, when they arrive there, they arrive with Kosi, Koshi, Chirume. Chirume, when they get there, he dies there. When he dies there, they install a new king. And again, my story will tie, because they say when he dies there, they install a new king from their own Basenzi, not of the Great Zimbabwe, but of their tribe that they came with. And they named him Chikarange. Chikarange because Chikaranga Bukalaka, again it comes back because he was installed in a Kalanga area. He is a Musenzi, but this king was only installed in the Kalanga-based area. That's why it's called Kosi Chikarange. Chikarange then later on gave birth to one. One then gave birth to Dambeu. Dambeu was the one that gave them birth to Dimbajika, the one that I've referred 1500 to Crossville Pomp. The important thing here is they had to integrate Chirume. They had to integrate. So Dimbanyika, then with this history that I've already narrated, clearly it's not just a pure Senzi person or a guy from Congo. He now has both definitely the Kalanga and the Senzi blood. Whether they want to dispute that or that, but clearly, because now he's even using the name Java Kalanga, because that's a Kalanga name. Dimbanyika, like I've explained what it meant. But he's now the king of Basenzi because he came from the lineage of Basenzi. He's the one around those 1500 came to the area Rwanda and then started conquering and integrating and conquering at the same time. What had then happened, he then started by different small tribes conquering them, taking them, and they're using that Ngomarungundu because when they were beating that, the enemies get confused and they win all this fight. But the biggest fight that was a trouble for them was the Bakwebo, which is the Tabatsindi fight. So as they were busy fighting that one, that's when it was too big to a point where BaLobedu, the Bashabis got tired to carry this thing. They said, let's hang it and then take a break. As they were hanging it, according to history, then it fell. That's where this Dimbanyika and his people lost that fight against the Tabatsindi, and they had to retreat there to Rwandi, which is called the Zata one. The first Zata, now we're at Zata 2. The first Zata of Tony's ancestry, that's where they retreated back there. When they retreated, they get back Dimbanyika, consult with the VhaLemba and their own Mugwena and Nizimu. Then they are given now the whistles to use now when they go to a fight. That's how they went for the second round, and then they managed to defeat them there. But it's a very significant group of people, the Matabatsindi. That's why they named as well, because they know it was a big fight. Like you were saying, 1700, then the whole group now has already been conquered by this. Now we can safely say the Papuri people, because the Dimbanyika is the lineage of Papuri. They are all conquered. Then they all subjugated, they all then belonging and paying homage to King Yavasit. Before they get to do that, remember, Dimbanyika, he left already as a king, where he left. He comes here, he has sons. These are the sons that today we're going to talk about now, the Chivase people. They are coming from this lineage. We're going to talk about the Mpapuri people, the Rambuda people, the Rawura people, and the Mpofu, which people call Mpepu today. People. That's where they come from, this Dimbanyika lineage.
Thank you. Hold it there.
Yeah.
That magical drum.
Yeah.
Lots of contest. Where is it now?
So, like, and I think it's a good thing that I've already said, and the history also says they lost it. So they didn't manage to claim it.
They claim, and this is what I'm saying. Among the three people who we identify as the groupings of VhaVenda, there's always a back and forth. You and I interact on social media, we would know. And of course, it comes to that thing of saying VhaVenda, VhaLemba, Umushabi, Buishe. They think they are the royal people because they think they're the most clever of the VhaVenda groupings, and it rubs other people off when it says. So they say these people even lost their drum, but VhaLemba, they say they have not lost it. It was a political strategy for people to think they lost it, but they have not lost it. They know where it is. This is what they claim, VhaLemba. Historically, what is the contention? Have they lost the drum?
They've lost the drum because this war that we're referring to, that's the biggest. There are many wars, but the biggest war that is described physically and spiritually is the Mugwena, was the what Abatsindi. That's the one. Not even me. I'm referring to an acting king of VhaVenda who passed away not long ago, who agreed that the war was so big that these VhaLemba people who were the holder of this thing, they got tired during this fight, they hang it and then it fell. That's how they were beaten, but Abatsindi took it. So with no fear of contradiction, but Abatsindi took the Ngoma.
They banned it.
Yes, they took it. It's with them. Whether they banned it or not, it's with them. They use it to fight. No, I don't think they banned it because according to history, they took it, they started using it to fight against this grouping. But that's why Basenzi had to go now consult and create the whistles. Now they were using the whistle to fight. But in terms of that, spiritual power was taken by the Watabatsinda.
So VhaLemba are in.
We can't fight them, but I like the fact that also in an unrelated issue, Julius Malema Mushadi is always saying, VhaLemba must never get to a point where they're thinking Banalema. And different scholars as well, VhaLemba, they say, you are not kings. You can't be chiefs, you can't be kings because you are of Yemen origin. You cannot have Lefahasi this side.
Yes.
You are assistant. That's why even in the context, Yaorekere, when Chirume, king of Vasenzi, when he left Congo, he had an assistant Yamulepa. Because they were traveling everywhere else. But they travel. So how do you then own land? You are always an assistant, rupees and so on of different tribes. You don't own everywhere. They get to a space where they want to help. They help govern. They don't govern.
I think to their credit, let's give them credit. They do admit that, number one, in their majority, they admit that they themselves, they are not Venda. That's number two. They also admit that they came to Venda. They came to Venda. So as a plague, they came there. So I think that let's give them credit on that one. So,
but who do they come with? That's the important thing. They must come tell us, because according to history of Basenzi, it says they came with Kosi Chirume of Basenzi. They just didn't come. They came with him. That's why it says when Dimanyika moved from that area of Great Zimbabwe, he was with VhaRauzi, VhaLemba, which is the one that he came with, and Vandaram, so that it can be clear. Because again, when you look at the history of VhaVenda now, there's this group of VhaRauzi that you keep asking, where do they fit in this whole history? Because the rest of them, Bambes and the rest, they fit in the Vhangona history of Mapungubwe. But VhaRauzi, they were not in Mapungubwe. So where are these VhaRauzi coming from? Those today, they say, Kipa Malumi or Kis Barata, Sasava Senzi. Also, when they describe themselves, Cosima Sakwaya, the Masia, we explained that we also come from up there in Africa, but we just came in different times.
Now let's do this. So I spoke to the head of Kara Institute, Dr. Mwenemutapa. The old man says, BaLobedu, they are a matrilineal society. And I know there are matrilineal societies in Angola and Namibia. And people have always said the Kalanga people are that. And of course, I've done lots of work in contention with who should lead the BaLobedu people. That's a separate matter. But this matrilineal lineage of these people, other people are abusing it to a certain extent, and it's very difficult to understand. VhaLemba, the lineage is masculine. You are Molemba because of your father. In this other instance, even though they say they are matrilineal, they do not conform to that lineage of your mother makes you. You understand how confusing that is? So I want to, the reason I'm raising it, I want you to understand that it's so confusing for us who are outsiders.
Yeah.
But then culture makes, culture that is practiced makes traditions and cultures. I don't know which makes which, but for 200 years, they had a female. They had a queendom for 200 years. And these people, of course, they had it, and there's a contest to make it a kingdom. Now, the time for VhaVenda seems like it has come. Of course, with the assistance of our constitutional, let me stop here. Is it wrong if these people come from the same lineage? Now, Bomasindi becoming a queen and making VhaVenda a nation, a queendom. I deliberately wanted to bring you a bit of background so you understand. I'm asking it not out of malice. I'm just saying these are the same people who, for 200 years, these ones have lived, have changed from kingdom to a queendom. And what would it be so difficult for these ones? And this is when you bring those Vhangona fights. Let's see.
So, and this I must declare my bias.
Yes, please.
But my bias is based on I believe traditions, customs. Those are the things that I don't think, no matter how educated one can be, makes you. The European people, they say you cannot because you say I'm educated, then you reject BaLobedu, you reject Mutapa, you reject Venda, or whatever that you are. Which, negi example, descendant Mwenemutapa. I can't reject that. No matter where I am currently, I must always remember that. But I'm saying this in a context here where we must understand what the moment we want to allow a foreign culture within a space which is very traditional because we want to
appease the current,
then we'll have a problem. But it means we are continuing with being suppressed and in a free democratic state, but continual without being aware that we are suppressing our own self and our own culture in favor of something that we can't even describe. Why am I saying this? It's a good thing that we spoke about the whole history of VhaVenda, where they come from, and BaLobedu where we come from, and we understand and we'll explain in the context of BaLobedu so that we can come to this VhaVenda. The same history of and other. They came from somewhere. They had to pass through MUNUMUTAPA. The history I want to ask that kingdom was also going to now displacing into different Mozambique and everywhere. There was the king that was ruling at the time in Munhumutapa, who had kids, sons, and so on. Because he was so clever, he realized if I do not give them different territories, they will fight. He didn't want what will happen, what will have happened with other great kingdoms, forcing them to collapse. He said, okay, my daughter, which was the firstborn, Zugudini, you cannot be here. I give you my blessing and power to reign, whatever, another thing. Can you take group of people, move, cross the Limpopo River as well? So that's how, and even today when people will say, BaLobedu have got some relationship with VhaVenda, and when someone have listened to me when I said where Dimbanya came from, and now you'll see the only meeting at what we call Rwandi Ronjere, the only meeting there, because they came later on. BaLobedu only can cross the river, what now we call BaLobedu. They only about Kalanga people from the Monomotapa. They only crossed later on with Hojikai or the prince Zugudi, because the father said move so that that side there will be peace. So Zugudi moves this side. She does integrate obviously with the people that we already spoken about in that area of now what we call Venda. But their interest also because they were directed by their own goals as well. So you moving your own direction. Then they were moving where they were moving. When they were there, they integrated, they were marriages and so on. But that didn't deter them or change who they are, because it's very important for people. I always use the term people have the right of self-determination, because they were individual group of people before. So Zugudini, she passed via through this Janela Venda place, but moved to what today we call VhaLobedu. Whether today we would call it Kikadolo, what was VhaLobedu, the debate, or whether it's the original name is VhaLobedu or VhaLobedu, that is a debate, or a different debate altogether. But Zugudun, because she understood how lineage worked, this thing of saying it could change, no, that's not even correct. But we can allow Dr. Mutseka and the rest to say that's correct in that way. But Zuguduni was not a queen. She was Mwanawa Hosh. And she was just given the space to say by the father, God decide. As a result, she never ruled as a queen. She was just going with a group of people. That's why as soon as she integrated as somebody, she gave back to a king. Otherwise, then would have 5 queens. She gave back to a king, which is Petrul. Petrul gave back to Muhali, which today there's a big contingent of the Muhali people in that space. So Muhali then gave back to Siale. Siale gave them to Mukoto. Only then Mukoto again, because of nature and Badimu dictated, only then gave the reigning powers to Maselegwa. So it's so that we can understand the context of why when I talk about Masini now, is it possible? Is it allowable for her to become?
You see, we have struggled to determine or a nation itomakai. So in essence, is the origins of, like, when do we declare that this is the genesis of the origins of a nation? Does Masilukwani become the 0.0 of the history of BaLobedu?
No. Zugudini, she is the history of them, together with the Kuchijibulu village, Abusha, Mohali, Petrule, Mohali, Le Mokor.
So yeah, that's the origins of BaLobedu, because of course there's contest of who ran away. Zugudini ran away or Masilukwani ran away?
This is where I think, again, when I look at this history, I say, but it's obviously history is written or told by those who conquer. But the history, that's why it's important to always not start at the top, I mean at the bottom, start at the top, so that we can say, okay, we are coming from that area, Great Zimbabwe, Munhumutapa. The king then is the one, she didn't run away. It was a peaceful thing to say, if you remain here, your brothers will kill you. I give you blessing as a father, move that side. Yes. So she came this side knowing with blessings, but directed as well where she's going. So it's not like there was someone who was running. So she knew how that lineage worked. That's why she gave birth to a king.
Hold it there. Who? I want the respectful way of saying it. Bumukoto, badorutshwarela, mara bumukoto ba pile ka yona when they were here. Who then commits the incest to save a nation? Who commits this incest with their child, with their daughter, to create a nation or to save a nation?
So this thing, I at one point I had thought that indeed this traumatized thing was true. But in African culture, we know that taboo is a taboo. That will never happen. Whether we like it or not, that taboo didn't happen.
Yeah.
That taboo didn't happen. That incident didn't happen. That's why it's very important for one to understand the history from what, like I've said, that Zugudini came from that area, Munhumutapa. And the whole ship come on.
So Zugudini came in as Mohalaka.
Yes. And Zumurozi Kalanga.
Yes. And immediately, because I want to stand, immediately then the beginning of VhaLobedu.
Yes. She's the founder of VhaLobedu, who passed by Venda, or what we call Venda today, to so she did arrive at VhaLobedu today. She did arrive. Then atala mwana mohali atwala ketule pepazala mohali atwala siale atwala mugoto. That's why they say already hoshi ile jabus. So now let's talk about this thing, and we're talking about in the context here, the drama which was dramatized, and different history people are saying, but again in respect, because I've got a very close person mohali that doesn't even comment, because that incest didn't exist, and he gave me the background, and that didn't happen. This is the whole story that they are saying about incest and happening everything. That's not how it happened.
Okay,
that's not true. That's why this Hoshi Mukoto when he gave this power to the now first king, that's not how the transition happened. The transition didn't happen in the sense, this thing about it, there was an incest. No.
So you are a proponent of the queenship was an accident or wasn't supposed to happen. So
It was supposed to happen.
It was supposed to happen.
Okay.
So the VhaLobedu people being a queenship was bound to happen because the initial blessings were
Yes.
and then the VhaVenda people would not take a leaf from the same book, you reckon?
I don't think so.
Because the genesis of their founding wasn't
Wasn't based on that.
okay.
And again, maybe to add a ritual layer, because you must understand, as Mukoto, despite all these people that I say, yes, when but I like the fact that I rather yes. So this Mohale people, which Mohale made Siale made Mukoto. So this instance, like I said, didn't happen. What had happened then was, even today, this kind of people. So what they say about this, and which will correctly link with the history of Akalaga, because remember I said Zugudini was the first daughter. And even in Great Zimbabwe, the first daughter was, and the first child was not this boy. There was always going to be a daughter in this history of Akalaka. So even then, Zugudini was the first, but because she's older, she was going to cause trouble. That's why he gave the blessing to Amaya so that your younger brothers, because again, she would have said, I'm the first one. She was the first. So history about Yabu Mohale, they whether put it spiritually, they give their first first child become Mwananya. So even with Mukoto, that was the thing, he gave birth to Mwananya. So then what happened? She becomes the queen. Then Musadra, there's a king, queen, and Musadra. So she becomes the queen, but she doesn't rule Kakolisha again. That's why even the drama that they were dramatizing, you saw Hoshi Mazlikwan was not sitting in the drama that they just did that. Because so her brother become Musada. She's the power in terms of spirituality, like Zugudi. But the brother is the one that Udiang Orana Dilo, while she's running, seeing the spiritual things and other things. The brother, again, is going to give birth to what? A daughter. First one will be a daughter. So Buhoshi Bamuzula, not what we see now, was coming from that kind of a thing. The brother give birth to a daughter, then her brother. So the lineage doesn't get confused.
Okay,
it's the same lineage throughout.
Let me do this last. I want you to unpack it, and then we'll go back to discussing VhaVenda and their queen, the possible queenship. So here am I. Masalana, the queen. Her mother,
Mago
was the queen, a young queen. She goes to Polokwane, she meets a gentleman called Mohale. On the same day, she says, the locked eyes chemistry automatic. A Mohale, like a Mukoto, have the right to birth the queen.
Yes.
Both of them feel this energy. Both of them admit to this energy. They consummate unceremoniously, of course. They consummate within 24 hours after having met. And with that, what then happens is they meet. Okay, they do not meet. I'm using the wrong word. They are met with difficulties, but a child is born.
Yes.
They are met with difficulties. And I don't want to say a lot of story because we've done podcast on it. But both people are not with us on this earth. And to push the long story up, Matolomotsecha tracks the child because she was hidden. He tracks her somewhere in around northwest, found in it RDP. He takes the child, he raises the child, and there's a context of Tisangwana. And to push the story further, because I want it to be short, people are then saying, both camps are saying, that child can be, but all of them, they all agree, because we've got different camps, all of them, they both agree that this child is the correct lineage of becoming a queen. But the other ones are saying she wasn't raised with our teachings, so she will be a confused king. Bring her. If you don't bring her, then she would not have been raised properly, so she's not deserving. Then we'll install a king. That is the brother.
Yeah.
The reason I'm stating a bit is just for our audience can understand your answer. Yeah, and then it creates, and then of course I spoke about Mukoto, which is the third family who are saying, but only us can produce heirs to the throne. But the history that you told us, even the Mohalis can do it. As matters stand according to you, and this is your opinion, this is not a fact that is going to get it. This is his opinion after reading his thing. The two siblings doesn't seem like Bona. They can meet and talk. I've the belief that let the queen. Okay, let me not give you what because it will preempt your. Okay, what do you think should happen? Because we need to leave VhaLobedu and go to VhaVenda. What should happen?
So Bajiani, it's always like I like even the way it makes life easier even for the one who the viewers out.
Yes.
Because you explain and you took it from what is written as a history in terms of Muhal is the apparent person of that. Mugoros are, Sierras are.
Yeah.
And I've said the other one will give birth to first child and that first child become a girl and takes over. So even in this case, whether Prince Lukukela or Kimasala Nabo, because both of them. But now the only difficulty in this situation, it was never, according to Roji, it was not allowed to be known as any guarantee. Of course, that was not allowed. Yes. So that's what even Prince Mpapa, or what which is 2 and 5 until recently, had said. And
you said until recently, as if there's an end to his retake.
Currently, there's a king. Okay, there's a king.
Very contested, but
so when we look at that from I would say you can't say what's any man, but I'm saying this so that we can get to the right VhaLobedu.
Yes.
And now I'm 1% that, like I said, even earlier on already, I'm a bystander in all this thing. I'm just a commentator. Whether I have no interest in VhaVenda, I have no interest in VhaLobedu. But the most important thing is culture, custom, and tradition. And Bohoji, and I like with both families, from two different points of views, they all say Bohoshi to Alapa, Bohosi Bamuta. When they met and made an interview, I think 2021 or so, when they gave a press briefing about now installing Lukukena, they went and explained that they were not known or who is the father, which is the correct way. And both of them, that's what they said.
That's our culture.
Yeah. And now the father felt, I don't know, because of greed, because African people now are greedy. He forces the court to do the paternity, and they then find indeed is the father of Masalana. Then BaLobedu, what must they do now? The child is already known who's the father and everything. And as when that was going on, unfortunately, he passes away. This child, this story of saying not was, I don't believe it. But BaLobedu themselves, they're saying the child then was with Mutapa, then adopt the child legally, because that's legal means now. Because he has some relationship with the family, but not directly, because but not in the inner cycle. He adopts the child, and he takes the child to where they live now in Mitre. BaLobedu says, and Bombapata, and I don't know, how do we then install someone, one, we already know the father is. It's not allowed. Two, was not raised our ways. How do we install? How do we know that she'll be able to? She'll be capable to raise Unisapul. But again, it's very important to put this in context over it. Both of them, because even before Pula Inij, that's very important that even Lekukela Inija Pul. Did it have the chapula? The chapula you are taught. And you are taught kamusaja. Like they will say. Masala Navo was not raised there. She in Facebook, Twitter, and everyone can say Masala Navo must become king because we are a group of people that are controlled by the likes and the vivas, everything. And we're doing this, pushing away our own tradition and customs. Because that family says, like you said, we have no problem. We have never had a problem with the king or queen because, like we said, we are a family that there's no male hegemony. Women, this is how we've, for years. So there was no way the family now can be charged to say, you pushed Masala because she was a woman. That is an incorrect statement. They judged and pushed her out of this queenship because of the two favors they've raised. That's Bangwana. 1, 2, she was raised in a foreign space.
Sharp. The nation, small as it is, it's leaking millions in potential economics of tourism and stuff. Look at the Zulu nation, how it's milking this thing. For the good of the nation, if there should be a settlement, would you want it to return to kingships, or they must just install a mega coronation, forget, and those who are crying not to be eating, they must be sorted out to eat and have a kingdom and continue. What's the best compromise as which that? Because every year the nation dwindles. People are getting older. The ones who are fighting and the time goes, and she's going to be a 45, a 50-year-old queen in waiting. It's going to be very difficult because the older people, I just want to understand, what is the best solution for the nation?
The best solution, family,
He's afraid to see it.
No, I'm going to get to that. Yes. But I'm saying it's very important, worry. Buhosi, VhaVenda, BaLobedu, and any other family. It's or maybe, Masha, let me put this in this way. Maybe I'm the eldest and I'm supposed to sit. It's not, I don't have a birthright per se. Mugwena, they decide who must lead them. Because before you become a king, queen, you lead the direct family. From the family to a tribe to the nation. And that is determined by this. You can't go lead the nation without having led your own family. That's why you are installed by the family, because the family knows the tabula and everything. So this family, currently, they've already said, there's no way they're going to stall. And this woman, I would support her to continue where the mother left if the nation was not compromised. The nation's custom, culture, and tradition is already compromised by Mutapa, and it was not her fault. But the best way I think I would use it, I'll go, Swede, Mutapa has robbed her. It was not her own doing. It was this guy who robbed her of own. Her and her own late father robbed her of her queenship. Why must now we punish the Gugela? And again, if we would put this in context again of the democratic state of South Africa now, where we say men and women are the same, why can't Lukugela say it because he is equal as she was equal? Imagine if it was the opposite. Lukugela was known and he was the king, and people say, let's put it. They were going to say, but yeah, you don't like women. That's confusing. Your family must be allowed.
This, unless I agree to say this impasse, as long standing, very protracted, is chiefly because the Mutehas who have far vested interest in who becomes the queen or who becomes the head of the family, and of course they want the queen to be installed, they wield so much political power. And with political power comes economic power. This would rather stall as long as possible, and the siblings will not have peace amongst themselves. But let's leave it at that, because he chickened out to tell us what does he he's saying Lukugela in various ways.
Lukugela is the current king because traditionally is taught. That we cannot run away. Lukugela is currently the king of BaLobedu. BaLobedu and other people can say whatever.
But Bapata is still leading the nation.
No, go to
technically speaking,
Wikipedia and other document will tell you the current king, while we are still going the court cases, Forget Ramaphosa's story of he had given the certificate, because certificate comes, you must listen from the family. If you say it with the Zulu nation, you've listened to the family, why can't with the BaLobedu? So are you treating these two kingdoms differently? The family must be the one telling you who we want. You can't go listen to an outsider. I'm just saying that so that we can understand we're talking about culture, custom and tradition, but also we're talking democracy, because when I said democracy, and we must apply it consistently so that when we talk about the Venda people later on, it makes sense. We're not in any way shifting and being biased in terms of whom I said. It's based on custom, culture, and tradition, and the current democracy process that is happening. Lukukela is city, and he should it.
He's in the Lukugela camp. Who is Masindi? Constitutionally, technically, is she heir to the throne? What do the royals in Soweto say? What is their culture and who is she? Break it down for us.
And this, again, I'm biased. I culturally, I don't think Masini should say it, but okay, let's unpack.
Yes.
Why? Because also, people now understand the history of Venda, where they came from, this, understand the Barozi history now, so that we have talking culture,
Yes.
and democracy. Lineage Yabasenzi, which is now then people are like I've said. It becomes complicated because nowhere in the history of this family.
Before you go there, you have deliberately not used the single and used Basenzi. Explain the two.
So this single is part and parcel of the Basenzi, but it's not the entire Basenzi.
Okay.
So that we would.
But single exists within Basenzi.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But this Basenzi are this the Ramabulanas. Masingo
Yes.
are the Ramabulanas.
And historically, sorry to interject you, because I want us to follow. Historically, you painted a picture, and this is what is known, that when Basenzi and the Basingos came, they found Vhangona.
Yeah.
And Vhangona are people what say are the original VhaVenda.
Yes.
Okay, sharp. Continue.
So now let's look at that in the context that when we spoke about Dimbanyika, who then later led this the now known group of VhaVendas, conquering all these different Rapurus and all of these different group, Bambezi, and everybody conquered to become, because they were speaking their own sort of languages, Bambezi, Vhangona, and all of this. They were speaking small different languages. Then they were amalgamated into one group after being conquered by this single people, which are the Basenzi, and now they all belong to that space. Now in that space, the king which was there, again, it's very important if someone had listened to me earlier that this will come from Kalanga kind of history, whether they like it or not. He gave birth to a daughter first, Chabungwe. She couldn't sit on the throne. There was a second born, Chisebe, there's a place called Chisebe or Rawurana. That was the second, that was a boy, the guy, that was a maid. And then after him, there was with the one that now is leading the Chivase people, the great father of the one who's leading the Chivases, they call him Radusuero. And there was Mpofu, and there was the one who's leading the Mpapuri people, those poor boys in that lineage. The Chawumwe, the woman couldn't lead according to, and even Ujapa, the Kusman said that was a culture at the time, she couldn't. But how would they explain why the younger person sat in the throne? Because like I've said, Chisebe, well, if Chawumwe was a woman who could sit, Chisebe, which is the firstborn of maid, should have said, but he didn't sit. Radusuero didn't sit. When you listen to this history again, this I'm not just sucking. I've tried to listen to the history of VhaVenda from them themselves. You listen to Gorem Papuri, the king of Papuris of the Venda, because in Venda, we must also put it clear. There is paramount chieftaincy, which is the one that they fight in court, but there are Toveles in Venda. Tovele meaning the kings as well, which is Gorem Papuri, who's ruling that side of from Toyando town down there. And there's Chivasa, Midiavat, who's ruling from that. So it is Basa side, that side. And there's this Pepu Mpofu people ruling now sort of the whole Venda. And there's the Rawura people that have got their own sort of kingdom. There's Rambudas. Because this Rawura, Rambuda, Mpofu, Mpepu, and these Mpapul people, they are coming from that lineage. They are four born with Jabung. That's very important to understand. She didn't sit. Jabung didn't sit on the throne. These guys, and now this third born, who was young, was not supposed to sit, but how did he sit? It explained that the firstborn in that household was supposed, and this is the history coming from Gordon Papu's interview with one of the guy who used to work for Univen FM. He said himself, the king himself of the Papu, is that they were the princess, or the princes, the prince were accompanying one of theirs to be trained command village in the Devele land to the Korean Vena to be trained on war and how to defend and so on. And their way from Rwandiri, which is the royal house, the royal palace of VhaVenda, they were intercepted by the people that obviously, within the same group, surely there were people that wanted to kill. That's how it was happening. And so they connived and then they wanted to kill the prince who was supposed to sit after the Banyik. And when that happened, the person was entrusted with the production was this Mpapudi person, which never even returned to Venda, even today's history. Everybody says no. When they speak, even including with the late Kusole Japa, they don't speak of Papuri. All of them, they speak of Chibasa. All of them speak about Mpofu Mpepu. All of them speak about Rabura and Rambuda, because this one, according to them, is in developers. Even the Venda, the story, they say it's in developers. But he explained himself that we're not developers. We went together with them and we were intercepted as there was the fight ensued. What we did was, they wanted to kill the one who was in charge, which is the Mpapudi clan now leader. So as they wanted to kill, they managed to kill the prince. But then this guy realized he fought and survived.
I can't go back.
Yeah, I can't go back, because if I go back, they're going to say I killed him. They will kill me. So that's why he says he had moved with the group that he had, and founded a new nation where he says currently there's a place called Chitombon Chambubana. He says that's where the Papu people arrived and that's where they were stationed. That's how now today they are up to Pafuri or Burebure, that side as you're going to Mozambique in terms of the Kruger National Park. That's where they are. Then the Chivasas, we say they're in Kumbani, and then there's Raura and the Rambutas. Then it takes us back, but okay, how did this Mpofu, who was not the senior, sit on the throne? I said the story of Baburi intentional so that it can be understood why the young man said Baburi couldn't return. And when he can return, this the Rauras, the Chikosis, they had to return back home to Zata to say, hey, something happened there. But when they were there now, they are fighting now. The Chisebe, which is the firstborn, and then the Radishua, which is the secondborn, and the Chikosis, now they are fighting about this thing, including the Mpofu and Mpepu. Then Chisebe realized, I can't deal with this thing. He ran. Like it happened earlier on when Dibanjiga and Dibanjiga ran to the side now, the way they are today at Rabura. And then the second born Radishua also ran, which is the father or the great father of the kingship Midiabatuna. He ran as well and says, I don't want to get involved here. Chikosi as well ran, and then who was left? The Mpofu, which is now we call him Pepu, was left in Zata, and then he was installed. And as he was installed now, this is the kingships from there. So already, if there was anything and towards that family had already happened, but one thing that didn't change was they never installed a woman king or women a queen. So we take it down from the father up to now when the late the Tony's father, the president of Venda, he gave birth to many different wives, and then one of them, Zekiso, which is Timamullo, Maschaba, Timamullo Raspedi, gave birth to Timbanyika, the father of Masindi. Unfortunately, he was installed, and there was no quarrel about that because they didn't understand the culture and everything. He was installed, he led, and I like again, would Japan explain the issue already? Now maybe I'm 45, and my father is still alive is the key. There's no way, but they can't find a Timamullo because I'm not a king. I'm just a prince. So until the king dies, you can't sit and say I can't marry.
Yes.
You must have your own wife.
Yeah.
So this is what exactly had happened. According to this history of these people, Dimanyika had his own person. This is Masindi's mother. But when the father died now, he must sit in the throne. When he's in the throne, they must get Timamullo for him. And unfortunately, before they got Timamullo, he died. He dies with a daughter. But this daughter is not of Timamullo or Mascha. This is where this quagmire comes from. And they explain it simply to say, And they go further than in the case of BaLobedu. Buhosi buapara. So I am the king. I don't get to give birth to the king because I didn't nyala maschaba. If I die, it's gone.
So,
And
so I want you to put it in context before we lose our. So you're saying because the correct and expected process of birthing an heir to the throne has not happened, or we are far around, it's kept amongst the pigeons.
It's gone. From that lineage.
It's gone.
Yeah.
They are forfeited.
They forfeited.
Then bohosi buthoma ulwelwa
But in that instant, they had ways of dealing with that. That's why the court now they're explaining that there was never going to be sort of a fight in this case because there's processes. So if the house which was supposed to give birth to the kid didn't, maybe they never gave birth to a kid.
Secondary process
because as long as the tender process were followed, in this case. But in this case, Banaba King Patrick Ramabulan, Guji was the president of Venda, the king.
Yes.
There were 3 other different houses, including Tony's house, which is said with no fear or favor that Tony's mother's house also went through the process in Venda, what they call Utanyu. Including that's what also Dimanyika's mother would have went through. So what is the process of Utanyu? Even the Zulu people do that. You when you marry a woman, even not just even about a king or queen. When you marry, they never allowed you to just say into the same time because they avoided. We don't know if she's pregnant or not. So give her some time so that we can monitor her.
Oh.
This is the
deliberate quarantine to make sure that whatever will then happen, it is a fair process of consummation. Yes.
This is what then had happened with Dimanyika's mother. That's why they could know for sure he is the right blood. The same as the second house or third house. But the only problem with Dimanyika is that unfortunately he left or passed away too early without having to have Musadi Timamul or Masichava in a Venda case where they say
allow me to offer a bit. I'll come back. You said something very interesting and I did not know about this ritual, but of interest to me is the word.
Yeah.
Kutanyu.
Yeah.
This new word yama ANC. Is it linked to this or is something different?
It's possible because let me explain what is utanura in Venda generally.
Yes.
So and also it will link to that. So when utanura, you're taking something upside down.
Oh, wakanola.
Taking something upside down. But in the context of that culture or that
quarantine,
it was to quarantine, but not in a quarantine, but also the first process of that quarantine will be Umakazi and the senior women that house.
They observe.
They get in that house with this woman.
Yes.
She takes off the top part. So that they can observe. Because women knows what. And even they look at that process and says, okay, we are satisfied with the first part. Let's now
nature gives time. Nature gives
that's the process. You must go through that process.
I did not know about this.
It was explained in court now by the cultural expert who was now in I think it was in April in Portuguese High Court. They called her, I think the testimony was almost 2 to 3 hours. She explained, she's not even there now, but she explained to them how she found it and where she got it, and she consulted different households. And this is the process. They all agree on that. But the funny thing is, even if they agree, but they still know, say city must become okay.
So here's the thing, and like I said, I'm sorry to you do understand that it may be seen very difficult in the eyes of the modern feminists because the modern feminists are taught to oppose to actually oppose anything that is cultural and a favor in our culture.
Adopt Western culture and by all means necessary.
So this looks exactly like Uhushola.
Yes, true.
And the feminists have said Uhushola is abusive to them.
But the people that the Zulu and then they are working with it. They have no problem. People that say they have no problem. It's just those outside. Outsiders always want to cause trouble because I don't know whether they are paid agents to distract and destroy our Africanism, our culture, custom, and tradition. This is very key. Later, I think what was 4 weeks ago when I went home, where my mom's aunt, because my mom was Vhangona, Tumulu. So when they buried them, at night on Friday and so on. So yeah, so when I was there at home, now the king came, the chief of the area. He said something very important, which I said, this is what I keep saying. The chief himself, he was coming from Polokwane, by the way.
You could have recorded.
No, I had a clip, but I can't share. But I can share with you, somebody. Yeah.
Sharp.
So he then came there, and I took a clip because I was the MC.
Yes.
So I took a clip where he was saying, I'm from Polokwane, about this King Tony and what one. He said, you know what? He said something very, that's why I say, he said something very, he never said, I support what? He said, I'm from Polokwane. You know what I'm from, why I went there? He said, I went there because I'm supporting our culture, custom, and tradition. I'm not supporting a person. I want to support a process that allows ourselves not to lose ourselves. This is what, and that's very important. So that's what I'm supporting in that code. So that we as VhaVenda, Vasenzi people, we don't lose who we are. Not allowing the court, not allowing any other person to tell us what to do, because if they do, and something happens, how are we going to deal with it? The stones are falling. What are we going to do? It's very important to understand that in that context.
No, thank you, Kilibugile, for the lessons I did not know about. So at court, it is explained, it makes sense,
Yeah.
but both sides still say, with that being said, Renyaka Kgoshi Radi Ibe, the first queen of VhaVenda people. And where do we go?
Merely because her father was a king. This is what they say. So they're using what you were saying. They used democracy, and I also call it, without fear of contrary to say, they're using democracy to tell a customer, a customer, you're telling a process which was enforced on you.
Yes.
To bend your own process. And it's fun. I sometimes, maybe for him, let me put it this way. Kere, the Hoshi, the land was taken from the Hoshi. And when they were fighting, that's why there was this Africa Maibu here. They've never said vote. There was no such fight about voting, because that was not our processes.
Our process was bring paper, there's ours
that you took. Not that we can continue practicing our processes. Yeah. So now I'm saying this in the colonial way. Now we are saying, use this democracy, which was not even what we were fighting for, to overrule our custom, culture, and tradition.
They gave you something that will then subliminally oppress you again.
You continuously, you are going to be oppressed by yourself going forward. Yeah. This is what they gave you.
Yes. Please explain to the audience, should I call it a reign, Tony's reign, and was he removed? How did he assume power? And how did the camp of Masindi come in? Just so they can understand.
So again, Tony and Dibanyika, which is Masindi's father, they both come from Patrick, which is the former king and the president of Venda. So the
Venda Republic as a Bantista. He who was
the king became the president as well.
Yes, of the king. Because like Womangope, they were English, and that they were then given these Bantustans as the heads of government. And he also they had him sons
or from different wives' houses.
Yes. And Tony's father is one of the sons.
Tony's mother is one of Tony. Tony is the son of Patrick.
Yes.
As well. Dimbanyika is the son of Patrick as well.
Okay.
Directly. So it's not like Tony is a Tony Kimwana, the former chief and the president of Venda, which is Patrick, the same as Libani.
Okay.
So the only quarrel again that they come in with, or sort of the issue with them, because in the Venda culture again, we talk about Utanhura. There's another thing that happens, and it happens with even on the ground level. When a chief or king is is put with 3 people, with other 2 people. Khadi, Rakhadi, Khazi, that's Venda. So if they put it, they install me as a king, they will bring Khadi to sit with me. So you are going to be the cabinet, the 3 of you. So Khadi together with what we call they call king. Why do I forget this term? So Tony became Ndumi. So it's a Kaziam Ndumi. So Tony was Ndumi at Dimania, because Ndumi is that which was born with you, so that he can protect you. It's your prime minister kind of a thing.
Yes.
This is what in the modern time. Ndumi is a prime minister, yet the king, which was Dibanyika. and with the cars. So this is the three people that came together into this new ray. So that people can understand like that. Tony Sendumi, sort of a prime minister, and then Marcus, who came to support Dimanyika's ray. But when he dies, remember Tony, Dimanyika, and Kazi, they are all the son and daughter of the king. That's why the saying that Venda, when they saying Uhosi at Dimanyika Hapara, it means, like I said, dead. He doesn't have someone to take over. It returns, they call it Uhosi Uapara Haumeramtan. It returned to the family for discussions. It resets
itself to say, restart the process. Okay, they are booting up the process. Sharp. So Tony, I think even when you started, you spoke about when there was the firstborn was a princess, but she wasn't installed. But she does not lose her Makazi status. No. And you seem to suggest that Tony came from a Makazi.
No. He didn't come from Makazi. He came, remember, Patrick, which is the father of Dimbanyika.
Yes.
He had wives. So Tony come from...
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So he has the same right as Dimbanyika, that Dimbanyika's mother, Titi Mamullo, so she had right. But if that doesn't work, then
you go to the
and even call
the next best process.
Yes.
Sharp. Tony Butoni Baba Fulusha Buroshi.
Yeah.
Keep constitutional process.
Yes. To say go home
and fix.
Go home and consult and give us that, tell us, because the High Court and the Constitutional Court, when it returned this whole thing and overturning what Zuma did in giving Tony the certificate of paramountcy, it was not saying you can't. It says, it looks, the Masini's camp says you didn't go through the whole processes. So go back, go look at every single thing, and we can't tell you who become the king. But look, queen, go look at that and tell us who and why, and you've consulted everybody.
Almost the same thing that is currently happening in KwaZulu. Yeah. They are still, the constitution said go and sort your things. The president can't dictate to you.
No, it can't.
But the president said, the Zulus gave me this, and I can't deny what the Zulus are giving me this. So let's go back to VhaVenda Royal. Who is currently, as we speak, the head of the royal house?
So, like when we were speaking, I kept referencing Mwene, which is a Ramwan Watuni, the late, he died 3 weeks ago, Japan. Japan was a younger brother to the current, the president of Venda, he was the younger brother.
Oh.
So when this whole mess happened, they had to now sit as the family to say, in the interim,
who's going to reject?
So let's get, the only person that was related to our father is the Japan. The other name is Masindi. Yes. Then put him there to continue running the show while we're sorting our issues there and also going to court. Ideally, they were supposed to be pulled away from court, but it can't because obviously the camp is so strong in wanting to prove these democratic processes. I call it like that. But they could have moved over and said, okay, now let's sit and let's consult who does what, like you were saying in the case here, okay. But they continue going to court. This old man died 3 weeks ago.
Mudding the waters further.
I made a video about it. It's even complicated now because the people that are supposed to give direction all die because even Vumakazi, who installed this, dead. Then what happens then now? We are complicating things, and I asked a question already. Let's say democratically, as we want, and everything, which will never happen because the court does not install.
Yes.
Miraculously, Masiri become the queen. How does she lead a nation that the table because one, in court, the lady will Japan said, there's a process also that is called when you die as a king. There's a process that they say they do on the mountain. Like I said, they bury in the mountain. Uzindi is a kind of a thing. And I think it's to do with male parts and other things, but I'm standing to be corrected. But he said that, and he said, how do we put her? This process, how do you pass through?
So meaning whoever is the king or the regent, at the point of them, when they pass away, the one who's heir to the throne must have been identified so a ritual could happen.
Yes.
And this gap has been opened.
Yeah, this time is opened. And we put this woman, not because she's, Sorry, and the nice thing with Bumakazi, also before she died, she explained that it's never about whether she's a woman or not. It's not about that. It's about the process that we have go through as a family. Though they're debating now this, that's why the court currently, it's not debating male-female anymore. It's debating Utanyura. If you listen to that court case, it's debating Utanyura and Zekiso. The whole court thing is about Zekiso and Utanyura. Because they realize Zekiso Mascha. Because now they are saying Masendi's mother was not Zekiso person, and she didn't go through the process of Utanyura. Even if she was not, let's say she was not a Zekiso, but if because she was still a wife of Kibanyika. If a Christian went through the process of Utanyura, did she go? No. So she's failing both criteria.
Yes. As an innocent bystander, but more proximity for you than me. If DNA traces everything, she's proven to be off. I'm not talking about rituals. I'm talking about blood lineage of the father's image. Yes, and she is royalty by blood. Would you then give an excuse to say maybe let her ascend? Or you'll be worried about the other cultural stuff? Like,
so the family is very clear. Okay, though they are chaos, but the most important thing again as African people is always to say, to avoid being biased and taking side, is to say, because if we were to move on top of something that is sustainable, and what is sustainable is our culture, custom, and tradition, then it will not be easy for anyone to come lie and confuse the system. But if today we say, we are,
so you don't like exceptions,
because the problem they create a bigger problem for her. Okay, let's say she does. Like she's not 20, she's already an old woman.
Yes.
Then she's already has kids. Then what happens? Who takes over? Because in the VhaVenda, Basenzi, there's no, unlike on the Mujaji lineage where they say we've ever had both, there's nothing written down how that's going to happen. Yes. Then who takes over? How? Isn't that lineage already getting lost? But okay, that is not for us to say. For us is to say, she wouldn't sit on the throne because her father didn't have Musaziwa Zekiso and her mother didn't do the Tonula process. And Wohosi, that's the third thing now. And they're saying it to them. It's not Dumanyika's Wohosi, it's the family. Wohosi is not a personal thing. It's a family thing. So for her to come now, I'm putting it in the context of those people that say it's like you are fighting. No, it's not hers, and I'm saying one of the, it's not Tony's as well. This is not Tony's, this is not Masendi's, it's the family that decide. And the family that I can keep saying, we want Tony to see it. But the complication here, Tony is here. That's why maybe this camp is gaining power, I must say. Because Tony, like I said, was a Ndumi. So according to culture somewhere as well, it said if you are a Ndumi, you can sit. But the same family says, no, you can't sit as a regent or as a king if you were a Ndumi. If this king dies while he is there, unale, if unale,
yes.
So let's say Tony, which is a Ndumi, Bimanyika had a son or a daughter who come from Zekiso, Maschal. There was no way Tony would sit. Because then Ndumi was put there so that the Ndumi can't ascend the throne if the lineage is continuing of the chief. Otherwise, so the issue, Ndumi cannot sit as long as the chief and the king managed to produce the head to the throne, whether queen or not. But in this case, the king didn't manage to create the correct lineage in terms of Zekiso and Utanyura. So again, we go back to say, Bohosi, guys, it goes back, Tony goes back now, not as Ndumi in the family. It's not only Ndumi. This government of apartheid is done. There's no president anymore. So Tony is no longer Ndumi, Umakazi is no longer Umakazi. They become prince and princesses of that house. The round house student says, from these prince and princesses would become king. That's why they said, okay, we still want to choose you. You and Ndumi, we know, but that process is looked at, it didn't work out. Now you become our king. That's how it was installed. But that, and then he said, and Zuma, as any other president, like Ramaphosa did now with Masala Nabo, he gave the certificate. And then the fight ensued. That can still be sorted in the house. But key thing, go worry, there are things that bars must intercede, whether we like it or not. More things bars ahead and bars at Tony. And again, Tony, Bohosi ki ba papa hai, Masini ki ba papa hai, but who's direct closer to the lineage? If you draw the family tree, is Patrick, is Tony, and the Maniga. There's Masini there. So who's down on the line is there. If we were to go that route, that's where.
In short, just short answer. Masindi Rabona Tony or Malume
Rama.
or Rangwa.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me do this. The reason, I took a bit of time to explain the confusion in matrilineal inheritances and stuff and lineages in families is especially involved in this modern era, how difficult it would be. And this is to say for people who would think, these people are pushing these women, they don't want Mazaranabu to become, they don't want Masidi to become.
Yeah.
The difficulty in doing it in this modern era. You spoke about how Masindi is not young.
Yes.
And I raised fears of Masala Nabo going to in the 40s, in the 50s. There are biological clocks involved. Falala. And there are hormonal edges
Whether we like
that
not
takes place. Those who advocate for women to be, I just want to understand, our modern women are not only empowered, they're also protected to have multiple siblings. Okay, I want to a correct way so I don't say it in a bad way. Women are even encouraged to be empowered to have kids of different fathers.
Yes, kind of a thing.
Yes.
They've got the right.
Yes, they've got the right. Let's talk about these two women. They can have a baby daddy 1, baby daddy 2, baby daddy 3. But once they ascend to the throne, because we're speaking about them, because they are on the sides now, they say they win their court battles or whatever battles, then they become heads or they become queens. Baby daddy 1, baby daddy 2, baby daddy 3. Then they have to find baby daddy number 4. He who will then birth the heir to the throne. This is our African culture that dictates that, and you brought this from the Munhumutapa and the Zimbabwe to say this is our culture, and therefore the importance of you painting it out. Do you think this realization makes it even more difficult for females to be leaders? Because you gave an example, for example, how Masindi's birthing happened before.
The father Dimanga sit on the throne.
Yes, and Masichaba being there. So in this one, let's say baby daddy 1, baby daddy 2, baby daddy 3. Baby daddy 4 is now the heir to the throne. And then he gives a daughter.
That's another complicated.
Because, yes, gives a daughter. When a daughter is given in both sides, because actually on the other side, VhaLobedu, we know already when women are okay.
Yeah.
And we don't know, it hasn't happened yet. Before they try for another baby, this queen is 55 or 60 years old. She's alive.
Yeah, but
she cannot biologically give birth because menopause has passed. What then happens?
That's exactly the dilemma that I think the family is looking at. And beside, and it's very key for people, especially women, to understand that when we speak about culture, custom and tradition, especially in both the VhaVenda, actually not even VhaVenda, everywhere, including the Urutse, Bakata, and so on, this is not about male, female, because even in Venda, there are female chiefs. Because no man can even tie that space, but you move to Didalia. So even in this case, why is it so difficult to understand that it is a space that is not just determined by politics, by the culture and tradition and logisticity. That's very important to understand that. But when we're looking at that one now, where we say, let's try and then put it in this way. Or no, she did ascend the throne, like we said, baby daddy one. No, which people want. I'm sure families want like that, but they, if they want to,
it's a very reality, because if you deny this woman this thing,
you are wrong.
Yes, you'll be found as wrong.
Yeah.
Why are you stopping her? Why can't she have? Because remember, the other males who would then we say the princes, who would be a potential heir to the throne. there's no problem with them in society when they have got girlfriend, one girlfriend, two girlfriend.
No, exactly.
So if they are given that, these women, it just sounds a bit rough when we say baby did one, baby did.
Because it is what it is. But
So I'm just saying, I'm explaining it so people must not say I'm disrespectful princesses. I'm not disrespectful. I'm saying those ones have, and we've seen it, you've spoken about it. But so when these ones have it, it shouldn't be bad. Because remember,
complex that way.
yeah, remember Mohale in Polokwane municipality, when he found the queen, it wasn't like she was. What is the respectful way of saying virgin?
But there's
She wasn't. Yeah, you understand. So
there's a munyana. That's very bad. You know the munyana and one yana. Yes, now it's
so there's no respectful when. That's why at the beginning we wanted to apologize for those who might offend, because we just need to find this.
Yeah.
So eventually, what should then happen?
That's why
It will reset.
Yeah. That's why Bohoshiba
Mudofala.
but that's why they must never even allow it to that point. That's why, remember, as we spoke, we said in this household, you're Petrian people. And the Venda, now the Chibas, and they still following the same thing. Worry. I've got two wives, for example. There's a Musazwa Zekiso and Wautanyura and so on. If something happened with this one, there will be the second and third. So that process is put in place. Like we spoke when we started here, we said it's not like black people, African people are not civilized. They were even better. They knew that.
Yes, scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3. Yes.
Did that. And even this, the difficulty with this royal house currently to come to a conclusion to say, okay, let's just give the South African and the court what they want, is based on those things. One, those things of culture, tradition, and also they're looking at how do we then deal with the issue if something like that was to happen. Because then it's not just about her. We then, the whole Masingo, remember now we're talking about the Singo Pasese dynasty, is collapsing. Shona even collapsing now, just her father's kingship. The whole history that we have now talked about today becomes nulled, and somehow it's dying because of a simple mistake that we've made. If they do, for example, and this I say with utmost of respect, if they were to do, and I can tell you they're more likely to do this way, if she was to ever sit, someone from the feminists in incest must happen, like we've said.
Mashia, politically incorrect. It's been a long one. We intentionally do not want to make it very long, but because we're going to speak about other things as well, we do not speak far greater into details. Like, for example, of interest for me is, of course, the mining capabilities of all these kingdoms before, but we need to dwell on this. Maybe next time we see that, we'll speak about that, we'll target that. And for what it was, for those that who could have offended the Rokopela Tshwarelo, it wasn't intentional. It was for us just so we could speak about this. And as usual, right there, tell us why did we get wrong? Before you butcher us, give us these people who know this story. We know sometimes say, "Ah, no, man, go and speak to Mangma." We do try to reach out to those people. It's very difficult. But for what it's worth, Mugwena, Rodebo Waman, for coming and we'll do it again, because you are going to get reactions from this, and it will say we must do it again.
No problem at all, Mr. Mashan.
Thank you very much. Kada.
Thank you.